there.
Hey, Alex, how are you?
Very well.
Thanks for doing this with us.
My pleasure to join you today.
Right, so whenever you're ready, I'm going to start doing this publicly, so we'll be broadcasting and everyone can see it.
Okay. I see no reason not to go.
Okay. And just so I have your title correct, it's the Government 2.0 Media Correspondent with O'Reilly?
Yeah, the whole long gobbledygook is Government 2.0 Washington Correspondent for O'Reilly Media.
Okay. Government 2.0 Washington Correspondent for O'Reilly Media. All right. Let's go ahead and start it up here. All right, well, we are joined right now by Alex Howard, who is the Government 2.0 Washington Correspondent for O'Reilly Media. Did I get that right, Alex?
You did.
Okay. Well, we're talking specifically about President Obama's Hangout, scheduled for today at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. This will be the first presidential Hangout, of course. He has received tens of thousands of questions that were solicited online, and he's going to be trying to answer them over the course of this Hangout. What do you make of his involvement in this? He's obviously been labeled as a very tech-savvy president. How important is this going into the elections to sort of position himself as somebody who's embracing this kind of thing?
Well, it's the next big thing, right? I mean, this is a president whose campaign successfully embraced Facebook and Twitter in 2008. That campaign was probably won more in the strength of the 1.0 tools, things like email, web-based forums, text messaging, that kind of use of technology that was not necessarily about the Web 2.0 tools that I think they're credited with. But there's no question that the adoption of social media by the campaign showed what was possible there and captured a lot of the excitement of the moment, and that carried into his administration. And that certainly led to the White House completely being rebooted in the context of all these different internet tools. Now they're on something like 8 different social media platforms, everything from Twitter to Facebook to Quora to MySpace and so on. What's interesting here, of course, is that, as you know, Google Plus is still the new thing, and they are going to set a first today in terms of a White House Hangout. It just simply hasn't happened before, and a lot of people are trying to decide what they think about it, what they feel about it, what we expect to see come out of it, but there is no question that this is, in fact, unprecedented.
Now, we talked earlier about the number of questions that have come in. Just to hit the specifics on that, 227,999 people have submitted 133,219 questions and cast more than 1.6 million votes all through the White House YouTube channel. Obviously, he's not going to have time to get to even a tiny percentage of all of those. But how important is the idea of this Hangout to reach specific voters, to bring individual people in rather than just this kind of standing up at a podium and talking to a larger audience, that one-on-one sort of a dynamic that you can get from something like a Hangout?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that all of those votes were cast by accounts, right? So while we like to think each one of those different accounts is a person and is a U.S. citizen, certainly I think probably guess that some of them might be duplicates, some of them might not be citizens even too. Now that doesn't invalidate the whole process, but it certainly means we should be looking at it with a little bit more of a critical view than saying this number of folks. That said, the use of Google Moderator at CitizenTube is something that the White House has been doing for a couple of years now, and it's a different kind of question selection than you certainly would see with respect to putting the White House correspondents into the press gaggle and having a presidential news conference. These questions, particularly if they're submitted in video form, do give citizens the opportunity to ask the President of the United States something that they care about. And to the extent that he gives real answers, we'll have something that resembles a democratic exercise where a representative of the people is directly accountable to those citizens. What I'm really interested to watch here, though, is not just necessarily whether the question is asked, although some of these questions I'm quite curious about, but also whether there's opportunity in the context of the Hangout for follow-up or dialogue between the people, because that, to me, is what might be different about this, right? As you know, Steve Grove has done these before. I mean, there's two of them. You can go onto YouTube. You can go to my story about this and see the links to both of them. People have gone on. They've asked questions using YouTube and their webcams and their cameras. They've been, voted up and down using the Citizen2 moderator instance. This is not a novelty. The novelty is that they'll be using the same platform we are right now, and that might introduce some level of serendipity or that sort of most precious of things in the context of presidential politics. We're talking about politics here to some extent, not just governance, which is unexpected outcomes. If a citizen hears him answer their question, his or her question, doesn't like it, do they get to follow up? Will Grove say, hey, did that answer your question? Are you satisfied with that answer? And there are real questions in those instances. It's not just about marijuana legalization, although I see that's all across the front page. If he gives a prepared answer, will there be an opportunity in the context of this kind of interaction to say, okay, that's great, but I want to hear a bit more about this?
Right, and along those lines, would you like to see the president strip away his talking points as best he can and try to be a little more candid, just given the forum, given what the technology allows? Would you like to see him kind of put that part of him aside and really be a little more casual, in a sense, with folks?
Well, I'd say there's two different things there. He's the president of the United States, so him being casual is something.
It's relative.
Yeah, it's relative, and he does occupy the office. I mean, maybe he'll show up in his shirt sleeves, and have that kind of experience. Maybe he won't. But in terms of the first part of the question, of course I do, right? I mean, we I think as a nation deserve real answers from our elected leaders. We deserve to have him be candid about what he knows about something. That's very difficult for him to do. He is, after all, in an election year, and if he gives frank answers which do provide fodder for his political opponents, of which he has many, then that's a risk for him. It's very difficult to navigate that. He's not just a candidate; he's also currently the president. So, if he's asked about the state of affairs with Iran, for instance, that has real bearing in terms of what happens around the globe. It's not just a question about potential policy in some other arena. So I would like to see him certainly do that. Whether he will or not is an open question.
Right, and so even if it doesn't go into that sort of casual sort of an environment, at least maybe it hits on something that you write about, and that's the potential for some unscripted moments, where at least it doesn't feel quite as structured, let's say, as something he's holding at the White House.
In an ideal world, I'd love to see a dialogue like this. You're asking me questions I didn't know. I knew generally what we might be talking about, but I'm not looking down at a briefing book. I'm just answering them, frankly, in the best way I know how. And certainly, President Barack Obama is quite capable of doing that. Whatever jokes people might make about him and teleprompters, I certainly believe, having seen him give answers live at town halls or watched him give many town halls, that he's quite capable of answering questions in a whole realm of policy debates and decisions. I think the less clear question is whether this particular medium, right, this platform that we're experiencing together right now, will in some way free him up to interact directly with citizens. I mean, and that's, I think, one of the promises of the internet that the internet has always held out, that you'd have an elected official who's actually interacting through the platform with a person on the other side. When we talk about Twitter or Facebook, we hope that it's often them, not just their staffers, because that gets closer to the potential of the medium. Right. We'll see. Yeah.
I mean, would you like to see the possibility of something like a Google Hangout occurring on a regular basis, so that the evolution of the White House presidential address, the radio address, every weekend becomes something a little bit more like this, where you can invite people in, you can allow them to share and to comment, and it becomes a little more of an exchange or a dialogue rather than a broadcast?
I would, although to be fair, I'd like it so they didn't have to have a Google account to participate. You know, Google has certainly created an impressive platform for this particular thing. I mean, Google Hangouts are probably the coolest thing about Plus for me. And certainly the kinds of communications capabilities that we have through the iChat in Apple or through Facebook integration with Skype, it would be great if there were some capacity to have all of those integrated together so that people could participate using the identity credentials they are comfortable with and use some kind of federated communication protocols that were more open than necessarily saying you need to have this kind of account to participate in this kind of presidential experience. Because I've seen that kind of concern raised by a lot of different people in the technology community about being locked into the different social platforms. You know, it's not just Google or Twitter or Facebook, any of them. All the different agencies, the congressional entities, certainly governments outside of this country, are having to choose whether to go onto these platforms to interact with citizens, because that's where they are, right? They're not coming to hang out, so to speak, on a .gov site. The capacity isn't there. But I do think that if we look at this going forward, that the more capacity that there is for people to choose the kind of service they want to use to do it, and to not be as fully identified if they don't want to be, would be, I think, beneficial for the process.
And what was your reaction when you heard that the president was going to be doing this hangout? Were you surprised? Did you think this was sort of a natural evolution of all of the technologies that he's embraced?
Well, you know, when Google Plus gathered steam last year, I was immediately interested to see how government would use it, right? So whether you'd have individuals coming on in their own capacity, and you certainly saw that. Then whether agencies would do that, and NASA led the way in that respect. And then once the campaigns got on there, okay, that became very interesting. And as soon as you saw Mitt Romney go on Fox, as soon as you saw Newt Gingrich host a hangout, I think he pioneered that particular use in the presidential campaign. Then I said, okay, well, this definitely is going to create a dynamic where, to keep up a campaign that had pioneered this space, I mean, the Obama campaign is probably going to want to play along when they're ready to do so. The wrinkle being, of course, that the White House governance structure and account and all the legal issues behind it are different than those that the campaign has. So once the Barack Obama campaign popped in, I thought, okay, that's going to come. And as soon as the White House joined, I honestly thought, okay, well, now we're going to see Hangouts this year, and that's exactly what we saw a couple weeks later.
Do you see the potential for these types of Hangout events to happen while he's on the campaign trail, let's say, or while he's traveling to different parts of the world, or including different members of his staff? Are you sort of looking at different iterations of where this could
go? Yes. Yes, the potential is there. There are some significant security concerns that the president has to navigate with respect to when he's traveling abroad, when they need to set up secure communications when he's overseas or in the air, et cetera. I think that it would be unfortunate if him choosing to do using consumer technology exposed him to undue risk. So I'm conscious of that concern. Certainly the more opportunities that citizens have to hold their government accountable using the tools that they use every day, I view that as a good thing, particularly if it increases the amount of civic engagement and involvement in the electoral process. If the president doing live events on Facebook and Twitter and live events on Google Plus and whatever the other platform of of tomorrow is, if that leads to more young people registering to vote and turning out, yeah, then I'd be very excited about that. If it leads to more good PR for the White House and burnishing his image as a tech-savvy president, I'm not as excited about that. That's something that is useful for their campaign, But what I'm really interested in most is how and where citizens are pulled into the process through the new uses of technology.
And keeping in mind, of course, those security considerations, which are essential, as you point out, is it important for him, though, to not just have this as a one-off and to at least do it on a fairly regular basis to show, as I think you write about, using these technologies, not just adopting them once in a while?
Well, I do keep in mind that he is the President of the United States as well. His time is immensely valuable, and when they choose to have him engage with the American people, it does need to be able to be scaled and accessible to as many people as possible. And there are lots of different ways to do that. For now, we're still living in a television-saturated world, so I think that's a dynamic that certainly I expect to persist for some years yet. The difference is that we now tend to have a dual or triple screen experience of our television. If you look at how social the debates have become with the back channels and Twitter, if you look at how social politics has become on the different pages with staffs and agencies on there, and certainly now Google becoming more integrated in the process with Plus, then there's certainly a complement to television. But my sense is that I would be more optimistic about senior advisors coming on here to talk about specific policy issues with people who are concerned about those issues, rather than the president himself.
We should make it clear. I mean, we're talking about government. There are all sorts of layers of government, or levels of government that could be tapping into this. It doesn't have to just be the president talking to the citizens. It could be done at a local level as well, and engage constituents there.
Right. And that's certainly something that people who deal with government know. I mean, that most of the time you don't deal with federal government. It's with your city, your state government, your local town, your council, et cetera. And there are certainly other companies which are trying very hard to serve that need. I've written about one of them called Granicus, which is doing live video for council meetings, for instance. And they do what they can to make it indexable, searchable, to make the legislative data part of it, to make the minutes part of the experience. And my sense is that the more competition there is in that space, the better it will be for citizens, right? So if the integration of the different tools that Google offers grows, then that's going to be helpful. It'll be even more helpful if there are some other incumbents that also hone their options, so that councils have more than one choice, and again can find citizens where they are and pull them into the process.
All right, 3 last fun questions. If you can play along with me. Sure. If you were one of the president's advisors, what would be your advice to him to participate in the Hangout?
Well, know where the camera is. That would be a start. There have been a couple instances where I've seen politicians look in the wrong place. I think be thoughtful about giving people the opportunity to ask questions so you don't stumble over each other. Actually, I think it'd probably be much the same advice I'd give to anybody who I'm recording the podcast with. You want to make sure that because it's being recorded and broadcast, that you have a good, clean recording, so to speak. It would be pretty tactful. I would hesitate to tell the president how to speak or where to speak, in what manner to speak. He's, I think, pretty competent on the side of citizen to president dialogue at this point.
Sure. And any questions in particular you would like to see answered?
Well, sure. I've been following the progress of some anti-online piracy bills now for months and months online, and certainly they've broken into the public consciousness with the Internet Blackout Day back on the 18th, that being the Stop Online Piracy Act and the Protect IP Act. And they've both been, one has been delayed, one has been sort of tabled for a while, but I don't think that I don't think they're done. I think that that there's going to be different elements of the bills that will be adopted and moved onwards. There's an alternative proposal advanced by Senator Wyden and Chairman Issa on the House side called the Open Act. People can check out keepthewebopen.com to see that proposal. It's not perfect, but it would be interesting to hear certainly what the President thinks about these bills and what he thinks the process should be. Specifically then, that should be asked in the context of ACTA, which is this treaty that he has actually signed on to, and that's been negotiated for years now. That would, it's basically a trade agreement that would affect copyright and intellectual property on a global basis. And it has not been discussed much before the American people at all. And one of the things I'm seeing on this moderator is that it's come up quite a bit. So I think it would be beneficial to get his straight opinion on what this is and why he didn't put it in front of Congress. Some senators have, particularly, again, Senator Wyden, have raised issues about the bill and whether it needs to be ratified by Congress. Treaties traditionally are, after all. And then I see a lot of questions about the President signing this National Defense Act, which included signing statements by him saying that he would never do certain aspects of it. And there's a great deal of upset about him signing it. And I think it would be interesting to many of those people who are so upset to hear directly from the President why he would sign that into law, knowing that it would give future presidents that ability, even if he said he'd never use it. That strikes me as being a useful way of networked accountability, surfacing a couple different questions that I don't think he's really fully addressed at a presidential news conference today. He's been asked enough times about his stance on legalizing marijuana. I mean, he's given that answer a lot. I know that it's all over the moderator instance. If it gets asked, it's being faithful to the fact it's been voted to the top. But I frankly feel like it's a bit of a waste of his time, even though a lot of people care about it. Those other issues haven't come up. And the nature of what the President of the United States believes with respect to how copyright, internet freedom, online freedom of expression, whether our Bill of Rights extends online, those are questions I'd love to see him ask. And I'd love to see him answer, rather. It'd be fun to see him ask them, too. That's something that I would love to see a president do more, is ask the American people questions and then respond to what they have to say.
Right. Well, a lot of folks will be curious and watching. Will you be hanging out with the president?
Well, I have not been invited to hang out with the president myself, unfortunately, and I have a feeling that I probably would have heard from the White House by now if I were given that opportunity. And I won't be in the West Wing either. I think they're going to be in the Roosevelt Room, so I won't have the opportunity to do what we're doing. But I certainly hope to be listening and tuned in, as perhaps other people are to us right now, and to observe it and to share out any of the answers if he chooses to address the questions that I raised or something that's novel. Because this is unprecedented, we don't know exactly how it's going to go. It might not work. Then again,
we're optimistic.
Sure. I know there's been some preparation here, and I know that there may be unexpected interactions between people there and him, and that's really the promise of this platform. That's why I'm interested in it, because it seems to me to introduce some uncertainty into this, some perhaps level of intimacy, some serendipity, something different. And if we get answers which are not just rote talking points, then we're in a different place. And I'm interested in getting there.
All right. Well, Alex Howard from O'Reilly Media, Government 2.0 Washington correspondent, thanks so much for hanging out with us.
It was a pleasure to join you. Good luck today.
All right. Thanks.